Hi, good morning. My name is Lili Tomovich, and I'm Chief Marketing Officer of Barclays U.S. Consumer Bank. And I am here with Rebecca Lowe, who is host of NBC Sports Premier League coverage, including Premier League Mornings and Premier League Live. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me this morning. As a proud sponsor of Barclays of Premier League for 22 years, I'm just thrilled that I get to spend an hour with you this morning. So thank you again for your time.
Oh, my absolute pleasure, Lily. It's lovely to see you and be a part of this.
Thank you again. Well, I have a whole list of wonderful questions I want to ask you, and I'm sure our viewers will be so curious about, because you're usually asking the questions, so this is kind of fun that we get to turn the table around. Let me start by saying, so in May 2012, you became the first woman in UK history to host an FA Cup final. Your sports television career began when you won the 2002 BBC Talent Search for a football reporter from a field of 650 candidates. So I would just love to know, tell me a little bit about, actually stepping in for this competition. What were you doing prior to that? What made you think that this is something you wanted to try out for?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to the last few weeks of my third and final year at university. And I was all set on graduating with my drama degree and heading into the world of trying to be an actress. That's all I never wanted to be. That was the plan. A friend of mine had picked up a leaflet from an old a record store. We don't even have record stores anymore. This is how old I am. From a record store that she'd been, funnily enough, at earlier in the day. And there were some auditions for a new sitcom, a comedy for the BBC, which is similar to NBC in England. But in amongst that leaflet, there was also a competition for a football reporter. And my friend said to me, "You love football." And I mean, this was very rare 20 years ago for a female to like football. So I was kind of an anomaly. She said, "Oh, you love football. Why don't you apply for that?" I thought, well, I'm a football reporter. I'm not a journalist. I want to be an actress. I don't want to do this, but I do love football. And I do kind of fancy being on TV. So maybe I'll give it a go. And when I do something, Lily, I do it to the absolute maximum. So I wasn't just going to half-heart this application form. It was a very big application form. Long story short, I went for it. And 6 months later, having gone through a number of rounds, I got to the final, ended up winning it. And it was one of those life-changing moments, because my entire previous 20 years had been dedicated on how I was going to be an actress. And suddenly the BBC said, "Here's a 6-month contract on our flagship network television show as a reporter. And Lily, you don't turn down the BBC when they come calling." So that's how it happened.
Amazing. And so when you sort of had the 6-month contract, did you in the back of your mind always think, I might go back to acting one day, or did you quickly realize that this was going to be a career for you?
It took a while. I think in the back of my mind, I always thought I'd probably, after 6 months, they probably would say, "Thank you very much, Rebecca. That was enjoyable. Off you go." But as the 6 months developed, I realized I had something. I couldn't quite decide if I thought I was good enough, but I thought I was better than maybe I thought I was going to be. And so by the end of the 6 months, I decided this, I think, has longevity. And they wanted to keep me on. And it was one of those situations which I thought, am I going to regret staying? Am I going to regret never being an actress? And sometimes in life, you have to make these hard decisions. And luckily for me, I've never regretted that ever. Thank goodness.
So as you stepped into this new role as a sports reporter for the Premier League, how did you go about learning the ropes? Like, where did you sort of learn how to be a reporter?
Well, Lily, it helps, I think, that my mum was an actress. So she is very theatrical and has I've always grown up being that way. And then my dad was a news anchor on the BBC, but we didn't actually tell the BBC that I was his daughter when I applied for the competition, because we didn't want anyone to think nepotism or even the other way, So I think I have that in the blood. I think I just had that naturally in the DNA of just being quite comfortable on stage or in front of a camera. It comes quite naturally to me. But at the same time, I had so much to learn with regards interviewing, pieces to camera. I was good with learning lines, but doing it for television is different from doing it on a stage. So it took me, oh gosh, when I look back at some of those early days, I mean, it was not great. But that's part of it. And they threw me in. It was sink or swim. Luckily, I kind of treaded water for a while. And yeah, I had a lot to learn. But they were very patient, and the BBC is the best place to begin your career if you're going to go into broadcasting.
Tell me then how you decided to make the move from the UK to the US and how that transition was for you. I'm not sure if you were, I can't recall if you were married at the time. So tell me, was that a big sort of pivotal decision for you in your career and personal life?
Oh, Lily, it was massive. I'd done 10 years in my career. I was engaged to my now husband, and he was flying in his career. He's a soccer coach, and he was managing a big soccer club in England, and life was great. I'd been offered a few jobs in the UK, but I wasn't actually sure, to be quite honest with you, Lily, that I wanted to stay in the industry. I'd had a tough time being a female in the UK between the years of 2002 and 2013. It wasn't easy. It's a bit easier now, I think, back there. But for me, the sexism and some of the actual being in stadiums with 10,000 people chanting various things at you after a few years gets a bit too much. And then within the game itself, again, it's better now. Some of the coaches and players, it wasn't always an easy position to be in as a female. And so I decided that maybe my time had come to leave this industry. And this is just such a typical life moment, because there I was speaking to my fiance at the time, and speaking to my dad, who is a real mentor of mine, saying, you know what, I think I've done 10 years and well done me, but I think maybe I've reached where I'm going to get to. I don't think I'm going to get any higher. I was the number 2 at ESPN UK, and I never thought I was going to get to the number 1. And the jobs that I was being offered were all the number 2s. And I thought, you know what, I think maybe I'm done. And then the phone rang. And it was quite literally, I almost fell over. It was my agent saying that NBC had been in touch and would I be interested in moving to the States. And again, another moment, a bit like when I won the competition, of kind of my life shifted on its axis. And so, yes, the answer was yes, I'm very interested. I've always loved the United States.
Professionally, did you find a difference in terms of working for the BBC versus NBC? And was there sort of a cultural difference or approach to broadcasting maybe that was different for you? Or was it very similar?
No, I would say less cultural difference and more practical difference. So the language, Lily, of television in the UK, I'm not sure if it's the same in banking, but the UK language, when you're in the studio and you have your earpiece in and the producer and the director are talking to you, the terminology, it's like a different language in America. So when I arrived, I was rehearsing in that summer of 2013. I didn't understand a word everybody was saying to me. And that was pretty scary. I mean, even the day before I went live on my first show, I remember thinking to myself, I'm not 100% sure I can do this, because I don't really know what they're saying in my ear when they're coming and telling me things. That whole change of terminology took me quite some time. Now, I have to say, I'm not sure I could go back the other way. I'm not sure I can remember what all those things in England mean. So yeah, that was very, very different. The other thing that was different is the way that television in America breaks it up with commercials. So obviously on the BBC in England, there are no commercials. So everything is paced very much slower. If you work for a commercial broadcaster in the UK, yes, there are commercials, but the breaks are longer. And so your segments are longer, but then your breaks are longer. Whereas here, your commercial breaks are shorter and your segments are shorter. Everything, it's like America. Everything's fast paced. It's kind of, and that took me a long time. I'm like, hang on, we're going to another break, but then we're coming back from the break within 30 seconds. And I'm, that was a short break. So a lot of it took a long time for me to get a handle on. Yeah. I'm there now, I think, 10 years on.
Well, I have to ask you, so obviously we talk about the Premier League at the office all the time. We just are, as I said, such proud sponsors of it. And of course, there's this, internal debate between, calling it soccer versus football. Oh, and I know back in the office, we're pretty adamant that it's football, but I'm just curious, you must have had some fun with that when you first moved to the United States.
I still do, Lily. It's one of the things people talk to me about all the time. And the funny and ironic thing is that the word soccer is an English word. We actually created that word, and yet we don't want to call it soccer. It's strange. And of course, the other thing that English people feel like is, well, why do Americans call the NFL football? Because they very rarely use their feet. So there's an entire discussion around this. I'm very happy to call it either now, and that's partly because my little boy plays soccer, and that's what they call it. It's the soccer club. So, I'm an American citizen. My little boy was born here. I'm happy to go down the soccer route. When I'm on TV, though, it's football, because
it's football.
Premier League soccer doesn't quite sound right. It is.
No.
It is.
So talk to me about, which I'm absolutely amazed, because I know you have a schedule where you live in California, but for the weekends you're at Stanford at the NBC studio to obviously cover Premier League matches. And so how do you do that? Tell me what your schedule looks like.
Lily, I mean, you're used to traveling. I think as humans, we're very good at adapting to whatever is put in our place. And I'm one of these people that kind of just gets on with it. So I started doing this not long after I had my little boy, so nearly 7 years ago. So I've been doing this for nearly 7 years. I will leave on a Friday. I will take him to school. It's really important to me on a Friday to make sure I can have breakfast with him, take him to school. And actually, it's easier to leave him when I leave him at school than it is if he's on an off day at home and I walk out the front door. He finds that harder than if I leave him with his friends, then he's fine. So therefore that's easier for me. So I leave on a Friday morning, I head to the airport and I take a flight out of San Francisco to New York. So it's one of those things where most people don't take day flights from California to New York because they feel like they waste the day. Well, I'd still rather have that 2 hours with my child in the morning and waste the rest of the day than take the red eye the Thursday night and miss out on seeing my little boy on the Friday morning. So I just work on the plane. I have a 5 hours of work time and, I have a lot of prep to do every week. So that actually, it's kind of nice to get that. No one can contact me really on the plane. Get all my prep done. I get into New York on a Friday night. It's the time shift is hard because I'm coming from California time to New York time, but I'm working on British time. So it's a little bit of a tough when the alarm goes off at 3:25 a.m. on the Saturday morning. I'm not going to lie, that's a little hard, but it was hard when I lived in Connecticut. It's just hard, full stop. But I'm used to it and I love my job. So I jump out of bed, I'm there, I do the show Saturday, come back to the hotel afterwards on a Saturday night, prep for Sunday and try to relax a bit, do the same thing Sunday and head straight to the airport, fly home Sunday night. And I get home, about 8 o'clock 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. And it's tiring, but lots of jobs are tiring. And mine is very compact. And my husband always says this to me, what it allows me to do, which so many working women don't have, is a very definitive difference between being a mum and being at home and being at work. When I'm at work, I don't have to worry about home. My husband has it. He has everything down pat. My kid is absolutely fine. They're having a great weekend, lots of daddy time. I can focus 100% on my job. I can go back to that hotel Saturday night and I can listen to my podcast that I need to listen to, read all the articles, and I don't have a lovely little 6-year-old asking me to do this, that, and the next thing. But then when I get home on a Sunday night, I can be mum all the way again until Friday morning. So it's actually a really nice divide.
Premier League, if I have this right, is coming to a wrap January, May, right? Is sort of the end of the season. And then it starts back up in August. And so tell me what May to August looks like for Rebecca. What happens? Do you actually get a break? Or are you, I know you're probably doing other things for NBC, but.
Well, depending on the year, if there's an Olympic Games, then the summer is spent prepping with our 1,000-page Olympic research packet leading into the Olympic Games, because that's always in sort of July time. But on the whole, if it isn't a Summer Olympics year, the summer is really spent rejuvenating. I would say the first 2 weeks are kind of spent getting over the season, because these are long seasons. And another thing that we
really
tease the
long.
NFL about is, the NFL is on for like 5 months and then they're done. We're on for 9 full months, sometimes 10. This season, it's actually going to be 10. And it's, as I just said, it's constant and it's constant information. So I can actually turn the radio off a little bit more during the summer. So that's nice. But the first 2 weeks is very much come back down to earth, relax, know that I have some time ahead. And then it's just family time. And it's really, really important to just keep everything out. And NBC are fantastic. My bosses are amazing. They don't really bother me until middle of July. So they'll say to me, my boss will say to me, right, go enjoy your holiday. I'll give you a call in July. So I normally get the end of May and June to just really maybe go away somewhere. But the weather here is so wonderful. So we just normally just camp down, have some visitors from England, have my parents or whoever come over, and really just see that time as a rejuvenation process. Because knowing that once you get into July, that's when I start feeling like the emails start coming back and the conference calls start coming back, and then we're back into it. But also I'm ready by then. I feel like that amount of time is just what I need to recover and go again. And then by the end of July, I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready to go back to work.
And then during the week, is there a lot of prep that I'm assuming you're constantly sort of following and in conversations, but does it give you a little bit, as you said, a bit of a reprieve where you can really focus in on your family life, or does the work sort of continue through the week for you?
I would say, as you well know, with the Premier League, if you leave it alone for 2 days and come back to it, 7 managers have been fired, some players been suspended. There's a lot of things going on. So the prep, I suppose, never ends, in that whenever my child is at school and I'm driving around running errands, I have TalkSport Radio on, which is the British radio station, which focuses mainly on the Premier League. So I have that on all the time. And we get sent articles every day. So I do a lot of reading, again, when he's at school. But it's sort of my own time management, so that when he's not at school, I'm completely present. I don't have TalkSport on. I don't need to, be talking or thinking about football, although he loves football, so he wants to watch it all the time. So it's an ongoing during the week, but I can manage it around him. So it works really well.
I'm curious about the fans, the Premier League fans in the UK versus here in the US. And I know you've had, and we've been so grateful to have you both at our Philly Fan Fest, Premier League Fan Fest, and just recently in Orlando. And so I'm just curious what your observation has been around fans potentially here in the United States versus back home. Have you noticed a difference?
Really different, Lily, really different. The tribalism and the sort of religious fervour of supporting a Premier League club in England it can have an edge to it, but there just isn't over in the US. And that goes back to a whole cultural approach to sport in America. Sport is seen much more as an entertainment. And so having these fan fests, it ceases to amaze me when I look out and I see 10,000 people all wearing different shirts, all supporting different clubs, enjoying a beer side by side. I still can't really get over that, but that is the main difference, is that the passion is there in both countries. It's just got this slight tribal edge in the UK, whereas here it's much more good-natured and open to having fun together, making an event and an entertainment, rather than the UK, where it's just really like all they want is their football team to succeed, and it's a serious, serious, serious business over there. It's just a different approach.
Let me ask you, so as a sports reporter for the Premier League, and you had mentioned when you started, gender, and maybe this notion of gender diversity in sports reporting wasn't necessarily as prevalent, I'll say, as today. Did you feel a sort of a sense of responsibility for, the future generations of potentially female sports reporters? And how was that for you?
I'm not sure I did, Lily, and here's why. Because at the time when I started in 2002, up until when I left the UK, I didn't really see any change. I didn't really see that where we are now in the UK, where there is a huge gender diversity within sports reporting and sports hosting, I didn't see that coming. I think a lot of this is come down to the Me Too movement and various movements like that in the last 5 years. That's really, really helped the diversity in England. But when I was coming through, it was a fight, and it was a fight that I felt I was so busy fighting for my own self, I didn't even think about the women coming through. I was so young. Now it's different. Now I'm very, very serious about being mentors to the girls coming through out of college in this country, and I have a lot that I mentor. But back then, I didn't feel that weight of responsibility because I didn't have a lot of hope that there would be many women following me. And actually, I was wrong, and there were, but although it took quite a long time. It took about at least 10 years after I broke onto the scene for anyone really, a whole group to come through. But yeah, the future didn't look as bright as perhaps it turned out to be.
So Rebecca, tell me, who is your favorite football player to work with or interview? I know you've had a relationship with Ian Wright. Love to hear how you first met.
Yeah, well, but obviously I have to say Robbie Mustoe, Robbie, Tim. They're the guys I work with week on week. So they are obviously, of course, number one. But Ian Wright, it's funny you mention Ian. Ian, what a wonderful person he is. He is the first footballer that I idolized because he played for my team, Crystal Palace, in the early 1990s. And he's probably the best. Yeah, he's the best player that's ever played for my team that I've ever watched. So first of all, he was my hero when I was about 10. He hates it when I tell him that because it makes him feel old. But when I was about 10, he was on my bedroom wall. It was Ian Wright was the star. And then this just shows the making of the kind of person that Ian Wright is. 10 years later, I turn up to work at the BBC. I'd been there a year or two, and Ian came into the office because he was working on one of the shows. And a mutual friend introduced us because they knew that I was a Crystal Palace fan, and Ian still has a lot of love for Crystal Palace.
Yes.
And I must have spoken to him for all of 2 minutes, Lily. And I was obviously completely starstruck and blown away by the fact that I was meeting Ian Wright, and he was wonderful, as you'd expect. Yeah. About a year later, I'm walking through a train station in Birmingham on the way to do some reporting. And he is filming his Saturday night TV show in that train station for some unknown reason. And he saw me, so completely out of context, in a train station away from the BBC. He saw me, he shouted my name. How he remembered, I have no idea. It was just a year later. And we had a little conversation. And I just thought, there are not many humans in the world, especially at his level with his fame and his success and notoriety, that would remember little old me from a year ago in the BBC offices. And ever since then, our paths have crossed many times. And he is, without doubt, a real hero of mine. From where he came from, what he went through, and who he became, both on the field and off the field. Ian Wright is one of England's national treasures and one of my favourite people in the world.
He really is, and I had the pleasure to meet him, gosh, I guess it was last year, and I just thought exactly the same. And I literally spent only a few minutes with him at a dinner table, and I just thought he was an extraordinary human and such a great advocate for the sport, and just a leader in that community. And so we're thankful to work with him at Barclays as well. So I have to ask you, because I am a huge fan of Ted Lasso, and I think, so many of us became such big fans because during COVID, it was this wonderful, heartwarming, uplifting show that we could all sort of watch and feel, good about the future. And this week, obviously, was the season premiere. Season 3, episode 1, aired on Apple TV on Wednesday. And I couldn't be more excited. My husband and I got, ready to watch it. And it was so fun, as always. And so I know you've had some experience with Ted Lasso. And I think you just did a podcast, perhaps, with Coach Beard. So anyways, I'd love to know, tell me about your connection with Ted Lasso and some of the fun you've had along the way with that show.
Well, Lily, what's so funny is that so many people now see it obviously as an Apple show, but it came about because of our show at NBC. So back in 2013, NBC and Jason Sudeikis got together because we wanted to create a commercial or an advert that promoted the fact that NBC has the Premier League rights. So Jason Sudeikis created a character which actually he had created quite a number of years before, but had never found a place to use this character, this American soccer coach. He created this character, him and Coach Beard, Brendan Hunt, they created this little skit and it went viral. I don't know if anyone's seen the original skit, but if you haven't, go to YouTube and type in Ted Lasso NBC original skit.
Oh, I'll have to do that.
It has about 10 million views. It's, as you would expect, hilarious. And then the following year, 2014 in the summer, it was the return of Ted Lasso. It went so well, let's do another one. This one, they wanted me to be in. So they turned, I said to my boss, I'm sorry, what? They're like, just come to work, come to the set, and Jason will be there, Brendan will be there, and they'll talk you through it. So I got to work, and obviously I'm trying to act super cool because this is
Right.
Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt. And I'm thinking, okay, where's the script? And Jason said to me, oh, no, there's no script. We're just going to ad-lib, improvise. And, oh my gosh. I was like, Lily, no, I can't provide. I'm not, from a Saturday Night Live. Could you please give me a
Right.
script? He's like,
Yes.
you'll be fine. We'll just do it. It'll be fine. Well, he's so talented. I mean, the guy is off the charts talented. And so he took me through it. And again, you can go onto YouTube and see the second skit, The Return of Ted Lasso, just as funny. I mean, how I got through it, we had to do so many takes because I couldn't control my laughter. I mean, he's so funny. He would come out with all these things. And so then that was that, and off they went. And a couple of years later, we discovered that it's turning into an Apple, quite a number of years later, it's turning into this Apple show. And as you say, it is incredible. And then last year, Brendan got in touch with me. So then he came to a fan fest. Brendan, Coach Beard, came to a fan fest in LA. So we reconnected. And then he got in touch with me last year, ahead of the World Cup, and said, I'd love to do a podcast with you. He knows so much about football. And we had the best time during the World Cup doing this podcast. And he is such a great guy. And you might or might not have to keep watching this season, Lily, to see whether or not you might see my face. Blink and you miss me. That's all I'm saying. Blink and you miss me. But unless I didn't make the edit, but I think I made the cut.
That's super exciting. I can't wait. Well, that's actually a fun history, and I am absolutely going to go to Google and YouTube that because I have not seen that. I look forward to that. That's a lot of fun. Well, listen, a few more questions, I think, about yourself, if we may. So what is throughout your, I guess, career, and maybe even as you were going through college, what was sort of the best piece of advice that you've received from, a friend, a mentor, family?
I always think about something my dad told me about 10 years ago, and it's something that his dad told him. And my dad is a real mentor of mine. As I said at the beginning, Lily, he was a news anchor, a major news anchor on the BBC for nearly 40 years. So he's been through everything, and he's a very wise, very intelligent man. And whenever I'm at a crossroads with something and there is a challenging decision to make, he always says to me, when in doubt, take the bolder course. And it can be something trivial or it can be something huge. I mean, there was one moment, leaving a job, you're thinking it's comfortable if I stay. I'm not sure if I should go. It's bold if I go and take this new job. And he always said, if you're ever in doubt over a decision, small or big, take the bolder course. And I've tried to live by that for most of my career. And it ends up normally, fortune favors the brave. It does end up normally turning out better. And it's just a better way to live, to take that braver course than to sit maybe in the comfortable chair. So that is a piece of advice that he gave me a long time ago. I have tried to stick to, and yet I still find myself calling him up and saying, "What shall I do?" And he said, "You know what I'm going to say? Take the bolder course." I'm like, "Oh, okay," because that's the scary course, but it's so often the better one.
Well, it's interesting. Yesterday, I was interviewing a CEO of a large global company. I'm not sure why, but the last 2 days I've been doing lots of interviewing. Normally, I don't get to do this in my job, but it's been a ton of fun. And the one thing she had mentioned to me, and when she took over the job of this large global agency, she was one of the first women of minority to hold this role. And she was saying when she looks back on her career, there was some situations where she felt she didn't stand up for herself enough, right? She let bad behaviors or, disrespectful commentary come her way, and she didn't stand up for herself. And she said now, older, wiser, her advice is, stand up, obviously. Don't be disrespected. Stand up for yourself. Speak your mind. And so I'm curious, looking back sort of on your career to date, do you have those moments where you think, gosh, if I knew what I knew now, or maybe had the courage, I would have said something earlier on? And do you counsel, the girls you mentor now to make sure that they feel heard and respected and have a seat at the table?
I can completely understand where she's coming from, because back in those days of the early 2000s, so many things happened to me. But the sadness was that it never crossed my mind, Lily, to stand up for myself. It never crossed my mind to go to the boss and say, this isn't okay and this isn't okay. It's hard because the environment wasn't conducive to me making a complaint. It just was, the world wasn't ready yet for me to say, I'm not okay with this. Now, that kind of abuse makes front page news in the UK. So thank goodness. And yes, I do. I say to the young ladies, now you must stand up for yourself and you must make a complaint when something's not okay, because I took, as did a couple of other women, many years of abuse in different forms and sexism in the workplace and all sorts, so that I guess this environment can now change and the women can now stand up for themselves. So I'm fine. It doesn't affect me now. And at the time, I think it did affect me a lot, but I didn't allow myself to recognize that because I had no choice. I can't complain about it. I'm going to lose my job. So I'm going to be seen as difficult and fussy and, oh goodness, look, she's complaining about, can't she just deal with it, you know? So I just got on with it and fought through it, which definitely hardened me up. But it was a sad state of affairs. It's better now, but we have to keep telling the women it's okay to say that this is not okay.
Right. And it's also incredibly empowering. I was telling someone just yesterday in this interview, I recall in early days in my career, I remember there was a specific individual that I worked with that in several meetings had been very dismissive and rude and disrespectful to me. And like you, the first few times I thought, I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. This person is actually more senior than me, somewhat more senior than me. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to be the bigger person, take the high road, walk out with my, head held high and just ignore that. Well, similar to you, it gets to a point where you think, wait a minute, what kind of example am I setting for all the other women in the room who are watching this and witnessing this behavior? So I remember after one particular meeting, I walked into his office. It happened to be a he. And I said to him, I just looked him square in the face and I said, please don't ever speak to me like that again. And I remember he was like a deer, with headlights. He just sort of looked at me and said, What do you mean? I said, you know exactly what I mean. You were rude, you were disrespectful, you were dismissive, and I don't appreciate it, and please don't speak to me like that again. And he was so taken back, and I just stormed out of his office, and I have to tell you, he never once spoke to me like that again. And I'm not even sure in hindsight that he recognized that behavior, but I remember a woman coming into my office after, and I had told her what had transpired, and she said, I'm so glad you did that because now it makes me feel like I can do that, right? So I have permission to sort of stand up for myself. So I do think, especially being such a public, visible, highly beloved figure such as yourself, if they know, Rebecca has done this or has made commentary or said it's not okay, then it really sort of changes the paradigm for the future generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done you, because that's not easy at all. And like you say, so many, 99% of women won't have been able to do that. But now I do think we are in an environment where generally women do feel like they have more power than they maybe ever had before. And thank goodness, Lily, that in 2023, which is kind of ridiculous that we're in 2023 and this is what I'm saying, and that 10 years ago they didn't, but we are there. And I mean, there's a lot more work to do, but we are certainly much further on than we have ever been. And thank goodness for that.
I was recently speaking to some women, and there's always dialogue, especially given it's Women's History Month, around the imposter syndrome. And again, when I was speaking to this female CEO, I said, I have to tell you personally, throughout my career, every single job that I have had or promotion or opportunity, I've always had that sort of voice in my head that's thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I can't do this. This is too much. And then thankfully, there's an other side of my voice that sort of says, you'll figure this out. Nothing is that impossible. You've got this. And so I asked her, I said, do you too suffer from the imposter syndrome, given the magnitude of your role? And she just looked at me and she said, absolutely. Every single job I've thought, I come home and I say to my husband, I've messed this up. I'm going to get fired. And he sort of rolls his eyes and says to her, you go through this the first 3 months of every new job. So I'm curious for you, as you've moved and obviously taken on bigger roles, have you sort of had that moment where you've thought, oh gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Can I really do this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I would say it happened almost on a daily basis in the first 10 years of my career. So when I was starting out, I was like, what on earth am I doing? How on earth have I gotten here? Why am I still here? How am I going to get through this next day? And I have always had this memory of, I used to have to go to Premier League football grounds, and report live into a show on BBC One. And I used to turn up at the ground, so nervous, every Saturday. And I would look at the person selling the hot dogs or the person selling the matchday program, and I used to think, why don't I do that? Why didn't I sign up to be the person that sells the hot dogs? That actually might be really fun. Maybe I should do that. Because I just kept thinking, what am I doing? Why am I putting myself through this? And then as the years go by, I still have moments now, NBC would send me to the Kentucky Derby, for example, and I report from the Kentucky Derby. I mean, to be honest, the out of comfort zone situation at the Kentucky Derby is gigantic.
But you probably have some fabulous hats. You must have some fabulous hats.
And that's what I focus on. Lily, it's got to be about the hat, because honestly,
Right.
my prep on the horses, I've got, it's not my area of expertise.
Right.
So then, of
Right.
course, that has like an inbuilt, am I going to be able to do
Yeah.
it? And before I do anything, whether it's an Olympics, which again, out of my comfort zone, a Kentucky Derby, or anything at all outside of sitting in that seat in the Premier League studio, my husband says the same thing as that lady's husband. He says to me, you say this every time. Every time you tell me you can't do something, or you're not sure if you can do it, or you hope it's going to go okay. And every time it does. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so over the last couple of years, what I've started to do, and that is what I try to tell the ladies coming up behind me, is you have to, when you get a moment of imposter syndrome, you just have to force your brain to rely on its memory of the things that you have done. And all the times you've been in this moment before, and all the ways it's worked out okay. And you have to force that to the front of your brain to say, this time isn't good. Why is this time going to be any different? And yes, your other side of the brain saying, well, this time it is going to be different. But you have to really, really push that voice away and say, no, I've done 20 of these. This one's a bit different because of this, and this. But there's no reason why the outcome has to be any different from the previous 20 times. So it's got a bit easier to cope with that voice over the years. But that comes with experience, I think, Lily. I think when you're so new to something, and the other thing is, I'm okay with feeling a bit of imposter syndrome, because I think that the day that you don't feel imposter syndrome and you think, well, I just own this place, then you've lost your humility, you've lost your humanness, your humanity and your integrity, and you've just flown away into the clouds. You can't get to that stage.
It's so true. I always have this feeling that we're all, dispensable. At any moment, somebody else could step into one of our roles. And so this sort of, it's almost like a healthy fear, I think, that keeps us pushing to be the best that we can possibly be, which is maybe not a bad thing. So I know we do share one similar love. I love to bake, and probably have been doing too much baking as of late, so I need to curb that back from the calories. But I know from your Instagram and things that you love to bake. So tell me about what does Rebecca do when you actually get a moment? I know you obviously love to spend time with your son and your family, but baking, and what else sort of do you do to just have a moment?
Oh, well, I discovered since the pandemic that reading is a passion of mine. But I've always enjoyed a book on vacation. But really now I've become a bookworm. I like nothing more, Lily, than to curl up in a chair with a cup of tea and a book and the cat. Then I am the happiest person out there. And it gives me, I don't know what it is, I think it calms me a bit. I think you get to a point when you have children and you have a career and you have a lot going on, you're running a house and there's a lot going on, where anxiety levels can be troublesome, and you could sometimes feel a bit, okay, I need to just be calm. And reading, because it takes you out of the world and into, and also I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not a highbrow, reader. I'm very much a kind of beach read, cheesy romance, all of that kind of fun, more of a fun escapism kind of book. And so that gives me a lot of calmness in my life. And so that I would say that, and baking. I do a lot of exercise every day. Exercise is a non-negotiable. Again, helps with keeping calm, just kind of keeping steady and in your mind as much as your body. Meditation, I've only got into in the last couple of years. Another thing that I tell myself, when I go through stretches of not doing it, I can tell. So I really make sure I prioritize, get up before everybody else, and make sure I get those things done. Because I think that, at my stage of life, I'm 42. I'm right in that bit of the sort of peak of busyness. I have a 6-year-old. I have a really big job. I have parents who are in their mid 70s, and I'm, I know that that's going to be a situation at some point. I have a husband. I have a hat. I have a dog. I have a lot of things. I have friends. We all do at this time of our life, but this right now is almost the busiest time. And so I'm very aware of that. So I have to counterbalance that with a lot of things for self-care, as they say nowadays.
Yes, I've been having a lot of conversations about that, and I recognize I probably don't do enough of that. And certainly the daily exercise is a real struggle for me, but I do think it needs to be a priority and something personally I need to work on. So I love hearing that even somebody as busy as yourself with the career and family life that you have, that you're making time for it. So it's incredibly important. What book is on your bedside table right now? Which book are you reading?
Oh, I'm coming to the end of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which is very well known, certainly in the UK. Probably didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. As I mentioned before, I like a book to be realistic, although I know, happy endings don't always happen in life. But if I can't imagine the story happening in real life, then I struggle a little bit to connect. And this book that was recommended to me, it's a little out there. And so it was okay, but that's what I'm coming to the end of, and I'm about to start a new Colleen Hoover novel called Confess. I'm a big Colleen Hoover fan. She's incredible. I've read all her books nearly, so yeah.
So I'll have to look that up, and maybe you'll tell me. I'm not probably as big of a reader as you are, but when I read, I happen to not read fiction. I read nonfiction, and I'm really into biographies right now. Yes. So I would love to, a great fiction read I would love to get from you, so I'll have to look up Colleen's book.
Colleen Hoover, amazing.
All right,
yeah.
Excellent. I think I may know the answer to this now that we've gotten to know each other a little bit. If this wasn't your career, what would you be doing?
Well, I should say being an actress, but I just don't think I'd have made it. I'm going to be honest, Lily. I think knowing the person I am, I think I'd have given it a couple of years, and I'd have got fed up with the auditions, the rejections, having to be a waitress in between jobs. And I think after a couple of years, I'd have said, you know what, this isn't for me. And so I think I would have been some sort of organizer, like a wedding planner or an event, because I'm a real organizer in life. I love organizing things and planning.
Excellent.
So I think wedding planning might have been something that I might have done, like my own business. I think I'd have my own business. Yeah.
I love it. When you're out in public, do you get recognized? Is it hard for you to go to Trader Joe's or, people stop?
No, I wouldn't say it. No, I wouldn't say it's hard for me to go. It helps that I never look like this when I'm out and about. I normally have my hair up, no makeup on at all, and yoga pants, and I don't really look like me off the TV. That helps. But it's been much more noticeable over the last 3 to 4 years compared to the previous 6. It happens a lot more than it ever did. And it's great. It's fun because it just shows me how the show is growing.
Really?
But taking my kid to soccer can sometimes be interesting because the kids are kind of, they want to talk to you about it and stuff. But yeah, it's great. I'm pleased because it means everything's getting out there,
So you definitely are. You probably win for the coolest mom. Your son must just think you are very, very cool. I love it. I thought it would be fun to wrap up with what we're calling a quick fire round. Just quick questions with the first answer that pops to your mind. How's that?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Some of these might be a little bit tricky. Here we go. Here's the first one. What song really gets you moving? Perhaps what's your favorite song to maybe work out to?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have to go back to my 90s days for this, I think, Lily. I don't think many people on watching this will have heard of the band Take That. Have you ever heard of Take That?
I don't think I have.
Okay,
no.
You see? No. So one of the members left, big controversy in about 1997, and his name was Robbie Williams. He actually lived in LA for a while, and he has a song called Rock DJ, and it just takes me back to my college days. It gets you on the dance floor. There's a terrible dance that goes with it. And that is a song, if I heard it, I would just go straight into the dance and get out there. So yeah, Rock DJ. Yeah.
All right. I'll have to look that one up too. Yeah. I actually know the answer to this next one, which was what's your non-negotiable every day? And I think you said exercise. Is there something else?
I think it has to be, I think it has to be exercise and meditation. Okay. I think those two things have to be,
Okay. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Actually, you know what? I don't mind. Peanut butter wasn't a thing. So I know this is supposed to be quick fire. But when I was growing up in England, peanut butter, you could hardly find peanut butter growing up in England. Yeah. So that's really only come into my life the last 10 years. And I am not fussy because it is one of the greatest things on the earth. So I'll take it any form it comes.
Excellent.
I just don't give me that powder. I don't want the powdery form. No. We're not into that. No.
Not good to spread on toast, no. Since you fly a lot, I must know, aisle or window?
Window. I mean, window. Yes, because I don't want somebody climbing over me going to the bathroom. I would rather be the one to do the climbing. And also,
funny.
I just like to kind of tuck up in my little corner. I would know the aisle gives me, no, I don't like the aisle. No.
Well, we would be great travel mates because the window makes me crazy. If I don't have an aisle, and it might be because we haven't met in person, but I'm 6'2". So if I don't have an aisle and I'm by the window, I'm a very miserable flight mate. So we should definitely fly. We should definitely fly together.
Definitely.
Oh, and what do you do typically on a plane? Are you doing work or movies,
well,
binging?
I'm on the whole, it's work. I would say work, listen to podcasts, and then if I have extra time at the end, then I will watch some terrible, cheesy Married at First Sight or, Love is Blind or something horrendous that I just can switch the brain off and enjoy some cheats.
Well, so my latest indulgence, and I know people laugh at me, but in that same spirit, is I happen to binge 90 Day Fiancé. So I've been known to binge that one.
Love it. Love it.
Okay, what is one word to describe Rebecca?
Oh gosh. One word. I've never been asked that before. One word, energy, I think. Energy. Just sometimes too much. Yeah.
I love it. No, but positive energy. I can feel it.
Lots of energy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Cats or dogs? Cats or dogs?
Both. I've got 2 cats and a dog, and I'm obsessed with all 3. So I don't believe you have to be a cat or a dog person. I do think there are people out there who are both, and I am definitely both. But in a different way. Cats don't care about you. Dogs are obsessed with you, and I'm here for both of that.
It's so true. Morning or night person? I hope you say morning.
Don't you worry. I am the biggest morning person. My job helps with that. I'm so glad that we live in America, because if I had to do an evening show, I'd be half asleep. I am in bed by 9:30 every night. I am up at 5:30 every day. I'm a morning person. I am just always have been, always will be. I can't understand night owls. I just can't. I find them incredible species. Like, wow.
That is me. You're looking at a night owl.
Wow.
So I
amazing.
typically go to bed around midnight. And then I get up around 6, 7. Yeah, but I find that I'm most productive at night. So that's when I like to do my work. I'm sure my team dislikes that I send emails late at night, but that's my, I'm definitely a night person. Okay, your tea. How do you like your tea?
Oh, it's very important, Lily. This is probably the most important question you've actually asked me. Yeah, this is actually the crucial question. Well, I've already had 1 cup this morning. My gorgeous husband got me up at 5 a.m. with a cup of tea. And he knows how I like it. So my grandmother, Esme, my granny Esme, who died about 10 years ago, she taught me how to make the best cup of tea. It's strong but milky. Now I know that sounds a little bit like a contradiction, but you put the tea back. So you boil the kettle, hot water in the cup. In goes the tea bag, stir it around for a bit, no longer than a minute, otherwise it goes bitter. But long enough so it's strong. Take the tea bag out, put it in the milk, preferably whole milk if you want to be indulgent, which I've decided in my 40s, that's the way forward. So in goes the whole milk. But don't be shy with the milk so that it's kind of milky, yet already strong. It's delicious.
See, I think that I would enjoy my tea that way as well. I love that. Any movie that you could watch over and over again and not tire of?
Yeah, there is one. It's The Holiday with Jude Law, Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jack Black.
That one. I thought you were going to say, because next to The Holiday is Love Actually.
Oh, I love that one too. Right? I do love that one too. But I find it a bit sad. There are parts of it which really get me.
I know.
But I will watch that at Christmas. But The Holiday, I always say to myself, would I rather live in that amazing house in LA with all of the gizmos, or would I rather live in that gorgeous, cute cottage in the countryside? I don't know. It's all amazing. So that's my favorite movie.
It's a great movie. Savory or sweet?
Oh, unfortunately, it's sweet, but I'm doing everything I possibly can to just, temper that. That's my big problem. Chocolate.
Oh, I understand. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for spending this time with me this morning. It's really been delightful. I've so enjoyed getting to chat with you, and I really hope that one day we can meet in person. I would love that. Thank you so much. Oh, that would be so
nice. I think we could chat over a lovely cup of tea for barely an hour, Lily. Yes. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.